I come across bands every now and again that have this sort of like stench of careerism to them. Like we want to make it. We want to make it in the music business, and that's just a huge turnoff to me. I think it sullies the art in a really deep way.
Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 229 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, live from Fortress Festival, or at least it was recorded live. Aaron Weaver of Wolves in the Throne Room joins me for the first time ever to talk about not only their seminal record, Two Hunters, which they were there to play on the day, but we also discuss our love of Neurosis. We share our opinions on Metallica, particularly Some Kind of Monster. We also discuss black metal, the future of the band, and much, much more. We got into the relationship between Aaron and his brother as well, which was particularly interesting to me. So stick around. That is going to be coming your way very shortly. But before we get to that, usually this spot is reserved for independent bands, but since we're talking about Fortress Festival, and since the next couple of episodes, or at least the next few weeks on Into the Necrosphere is going to be Fortress themed, I figured what better way to kick off this particular installment of the show than to let one of the bands that had an opportunity to shine at Fortress strut their stuff on Into the Necrosphere off an album called To Bear the Weight of Death, the song of the same name by the band Andraca. That was a track called To Bear the Weight of Death. The band is Andraca out of the UK. The album is available right now on Vendetta Records. And as always, I'll post a link to their Bandcamp in the description to the podcast. So if you head over there and you buy yourself some music, then let them know who sent you. My friends, if you're new to the podcast and you haven't yet done so, all I ask is that you take the closest folding chair and beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. If you don't yet do so, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on X, and you can also head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store and give that little wardrobe of yours an upgrade before the grueling summer months. You will also be aware that I am a member of an elite group of content creators who fill your weeks from Monday to Sunday with high-quality, thought-provoking entertainment. We start with Horrible 666 every Monday, or every second Monday, I should say, hosted by the inimitable Brandon Legion. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses every Tuesday on Into the Necrosphere. Next week, Tuesday, my guest is going to be Harold Fosberg of the band Turbo Necro. He was also a fellow panelist back in April when I was at Inferno Festival, and we did our panel on hate speech. So I've been meaning to get him on the podcast for a while to kind of carry on our conversation from that panel, but we also spoke a lot about black metal. This is a dude who, when you talk about old heads, he was around really from the inception of bands like Mayhem, Satyricon, from Varg running around, acting all crazy, acting all whack on the mean streets of Oslo. So he had plenty to talk about. It's a really fascinating conversation, and it's coming your way next week. Also coming your way later this week will be another of my Fortress Forum conversations. I spoke to Ralph Schmidt, fellow Horseman, also of the band Ultha. Really, really great conversation. Probably one of my favorites that I recorded that weekend. I'll drop that this coming Friday, and then next week Friday, I will drop my conversation with a member of Guerrilla. Now, you may be wondering who stole the show at Fortress Festival. I'll talk about that later on in the podcast, but first I have to remind you that on a Wednesday, the Sensei Mike Hill brings you another installment of his long-running podcast, Everything Went Black. He returns on a Thursday alongside his co-hosts Sheriff Mike Scondado and Professor Jeff Kashid with one of my favorites of the week, Necromaniacs. This past week, they reviewed one of my favorite movies of the year so far, Civil War, a really thoughtful, interesting analysis of a fantastic film, and those guys are just always entertaining and great value, so make sure you listen to them every single Thursday. You should also, on a Thursday and on a Sunday, be listening to the Reverend Carl Haikara as he takes you down another curated tour of the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric with his podcast, Soul Knox, and then skulking in the shadows, pouncing when you least expect it, Cheyenne of the band Trivax and his brilliant podcast, Iblis Manifestations. And there you go, the whole gang, filling your week, like I said, from Monday to Sunday with high-quality entertainment. Make sure you follow and support us all. Make sure you stick around when I'm done talking to Aaron. Not only am I going to be reviewing Fortress Festival and giving you my view on the good, the bad, the ugly, I'll also tell you what went down when I met Thomas Fisher of Celtic Frost and Triptychon fame. And then it's on to metalstorm.net for another weekly news rant. And this week we are listening to new music by Aelion. We are listening to new tracks by Nails, Sanguinuzabog, and loads more. So a ton coming your way over the course of the next 2 and a bit hours. Sit back and enjoy, because this, my friends, is what happened when I spoke to Aaron Weaver of Wolves in the Throne Room at Fortress Festival 2024. All right, folks, we're going to get started, and because there's a bit of latency with these microphones, and you are part of the very historic first ever Into the Necrosphere live podcast.
My voice is happening about 5 seconds after I speak it.
Yeah, and I don't want it to sound like dog shit. We're going to, and hopefully you can hear us, and if you can't, feel free to come a little closer, obviously not too close, otherwise the security guards come out from the side and, you know, send you back.
And I can speak up.
Yeah.
I have a normal human voice.
100%, and my voice is just loud by nature. So I'm going to start by allowing my esteemed guest to introduce himself. I believe we agreed backstage, Cedar Serpent is
it's
the
a
name
pseudonym
by which you
day.
go today. But just for anybody who's drunkenly staggered in and is wondering what we're doing here, give us a synopsis.
I am Aaron Weaver, aka Cedar Serpent, a member of Wolves in the Throne Room, a atmospheric black metal band from Olympia, Washington, and I am here at Fortress Festival to play some heavy metal music later on today.
And to do something very special that you guys have only ever done this a couple of times previously. So you did it at the
Just
Decibel,
once.
Decibel Beer and Metal Fest.
Yes.
So this will be the second time that you do it.
We were asked to perform Two Hunters, which came out in 2007. You might know better than I, in its entirety. But I think we'll play another song as well, because the album is 45 minutes or so.
It's just sub 50 minutes.
Yeah, so there'll be like something that'll happen afterwards, since we have the time.
Yeah. I mean, there are songs from Two Hunters that are mainstays in your set list in any case.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe recollecting from your experience of being at the Decibel Beer and Metal Fest, or thinking about doing it tonight, what does it feel like to go back to that record in its entirety, or go back to that material that, you know, as you've just said now, is about 15, 16 years old?
It was a process, because, as you mentioned, like some of the songs on that record oftentimes find their way into the live set. And when we play a song live for months or years, it really takes on a life of its own, and the tempo has changed, and we approach things differently. But since we're playing the record from beginning to end, we went back to actually the original recording, the original 2-inch tape, and listened to the actual performances. And we all took great care to really listen to oh wait, what was Rick actually doing there? Or what was that drum beat? Or what was that tempo? Because one thing that I personally have hated as a fan over the years is when bands radically change a song. Like when I was a kid, I always hated when James Hetfield would change the phrasing on like Master of Puppets, like the way he like approaches the lyrics, or if tempos are way off, I always felt a sense of disappointment. I mean, that was so visceral for me as like a 14-year-old, like seeing Metallica. And so for this performance especially, we wanted to be very true to the album. But of course, it's like a updated version. It's like what's happening and feels relevant in 2024 instead of 2007. So we're trying to connect to like the essence of what that record was when we recorded it and let it blossom into what makes the most sense right now for us and for the audience as well.
How do you feel about that material, you know, in hindsight? Because it was a very special record for you guys. You came off the back of a debut that was very warmly received. I can imagine, I mean, was there any pressure to kind of live up to the expectation of the first record?
No. Like we were like so underground and still are, and so just deeply punk in our approach to everything, and so DIY in our approach to music. Like there's never been like a careerist agenda or any sense of like making it or any sense of, oh, we have to do this to please the audience. It's always just been, we play music, it's what we do. Like this is our culture, this is our community, this is what we love, and it just sort of flows out. That being said, we did work really, really hard at Two Hunters. Like I remember how much we rehearsed. In those days, we were rehearsing in this bizarre room. There's this guy who lives in Olympia called the Dark Dentist, and he's this, he's a dentist, an actual dentist, but he's a goth. And he's taken like so much fucking acid. And I just want to know I've always wanted to know what's going on in his mind when he's like pulling someone's tooth out, having the acid flashbacks. And anyway, he owns, I think, 40 or 50 houses in Olympia that are all painted black, and they're called the Black Houses. And they're all populated by metalheads and punks and weird people. And he owned a building downtown. And him and Nathan were collaborators on an all-ages space called Manium, which was kind of the main all-ages space in Olympia in those days for many years. Nathan was kind of like the DIY show guy in Olympia for a long time for punk and metal stuff. And we were practicing upstairs in like one of the weirdest rooms. It's hard to believe it's real, but it was. The ceilings were only 5 feet tall, and it was the entire space was like broken mirror, like mosaic. The entire thing was tile and then broken mirror mosaic. And it was some sort of like weird like coke den or something from the previous tenant. Yeah. And we rehearsed in there for months in this sweltering small room where we had to crouch with these broken mirrors everywhere. And so when we went into the studio to lay down the tracks, which were all done live, just in one take all the way through, on the tape, 2-inch tape, we were extremely rehearsed. And we knew it was going to be a good record. Like we just had that feeling as artists, like, oh, we're like tapped into a current, you know.
Before we started, actually, I was talking to you about, you know, audio, and I'm, you know, anyone who's listened to the podcast will know this. I'm a huge hi-fi nut. I've spent probably way more money than I should on a hi-fi system. I was listening to Two Hunters on that the other day. It's incredible, the ambience of that album. Yeah. I mean, literally from the second it starts, you know, you hear the sounds in the background, you hear this kind of live feel to it. There's an atmosphere to it that is just kind of very special from the get-go. Was there a sense of this is a record that really propels us forward as a band when you guys were recording it?
Well, again, there was no sense of propelling anywhere. Yeah. It's like, this is what we're doing. We're making this record for our underground, DIY, black metal, crusty punk, living in the woods scene. No, it just wasn't in our mindset. Like, we were, you know, touring in a brutalized 1989 Dodge van, just sleeping on floors, you know. It was just a different mindset. But we still have it. I mean, that's still at the core of what we do. Like, we'll never let go of that way of approaching music and that set of motivations. Like, you know, I come across bands every now and again that have this sort of like stench of careerism to them. Like, we want to make it. We want to make it in the music business. And that's just a huge turnoff to me. I think it sullies the art in a really deep way.
So maybe set the scene. You know, you're talking about kind of the roots of the band, and you know, you come from the sort of DIY punk a DIY punk background, very
metal,
different to a lot of people,
but also really metal too.
Yeah, but yeah, tell me a bit about the early days of the band. You know, the environment you came from and the environment that you kind of came up through.
Well, Nathan and I grew up in Olympia, Washington, which has like a pretty well-known like punk scene, but a very different kind of punk. This is like Riot Girl.
Yeah.
Like when we were kids, we'd like be at like Bratmobile shows. We were metalheads and didn't like that kind of music, but it's a small town, and that's the cool thing about a small town is like the metalheads and the Riot Girl people and the K Records, sort of like twee folk people, and then just the complete freaks all are working at the same DIY space. Like that's just whatever. There's like two places where shows can happen and everyone is there. That's the beauty of a small town. And the thing that unites all these people beyond, a scene affiliation or beyond a certain aesthetic is a commitment to DIY and a commitment to like an underground approach and a commitment to underground culture. Like in those days to go on tour, there was a book, like a photocopied book that would get passed around that had the phone number of every punk house in the North America. And so to book a tour, you'd call different punk houses and say, hey, my band's coming on tour, can we play at your house? And then you'd arrive in the town, you get a pay phone, you'd call the house, and you talk to the punk at the house, and they'd be like, well, you're on the highway, well, I don't drive, but on my bike, I usually do this, and you would find your way to the house. And so, like, that was very much like the culture. Very, punk, but we were like metalheads. Like, we were into Morbid Angel, Deicide, Incantation, Metallica. It's like always been like a guiding post for me in metal music. And so that was kind of our basis, like 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Like that was like the roots. And as we got a bit older, we got turned on to a band that really opened my mind a lot was Neurosis. Because Nathan and I both worked at this DIY space in Olympia. It's called Capitol Theater Backstage. Very similar to this. The Capitol Theater is a nice old hall about this size, but the bands would play at the backstage. So we would face like this direction and the audience would be back there, like on the backstage. And there was this crazy homemade like riser they'd roll out and bands would play facing this direction. And we were working at the backstage and we'd help bands load in. And Neurosis came through on the Through Silver and Blood tour. And so this must have been 96.
Yeah, it would have been.
And they were on, I think that Olympia was like the second to last date of that tour. And I remember when they rolled in, they brought with them like what can only be described as like magic. They all rolled into the space and immediately started doing push-ups and just had this like fucking vibe. They just like took over the space. And instead of being the Capitol Theater, it became the temple of Neurosis for that night. And that really opened our eyes to like, oh, there's this sort of like punk rock sort of political or, I don't know, very kind of materialistic way of doing music, but there's something else too that feels like mythology, like it feels like magic. Because, since I was a little kid, I've always been deeply in love with mythology of the world, specifically mythology and magic from the British Isles, Ireland, which is kind of my ancestral roots. And that kind of like clicked something together. Like, oh, metal, DIY approach, and magic. And that's kind of been the path going forward since there. And I think, and then maybe a few years after that, there was, in those days, a lot of forest defense going on. The Northwest is, of course, famous for these massive trees, 3 meters in diameter. And in the 90s, there was the risk of the last of these vestiges of the ancient forest being logged. And so there's a lot of resistance to that, like tree sitting. And I think the same thing happened in other places in the world, but it was a really vibrant culture in the Northwest, and our band was always kind of adjacent to that culture. The same punk houses that would host the show were also hosting, the benefit to support these tree sits. And another strand that came in was sort of like the deep forest, like psychedelic rave culture that we had in the Northwest. There was like a really pivotal festival called the Autonomous Mutant Festival, which is like maybe like a free party, I guess, kind of like in the UK, kind of happening around the same time. But the unique thing about it is that it's very dark, like a lot of sort of gothic vibes to it, but Wolves in the Throne Room would play, outside, deep in the forest, generator powered, 1,000 people maybe maximum, just really extreme edge dwelling people. And then right after that would be acid house or techno or dark ambient. And so for me, it's always made sense. Like, oh yeah, like really dark techno and black metal are kind of the same thing. Like the tempo is the same. It's a trance beat, it's a shaman's drum, it's ambience. It's a space that you enter. It's very physical. It like demands like a physical like movement from the body. It's cathartic. So I've said a lot, but that in a nutshell is kind of like, the roots of the band.
You've opened up several avenues of conversation there. I think the one that is very near to me, same as you, Neurosis, absolutely love them. And I guess we can't mention Neurosis without saying I feel very strongly that whatever has happened with Scott Kelly cannot overshadow that band's legacy. I kind of feel like there's almost I almost feel like the reflexive response from some people risks that, but to me that would be just an absolute tragedy.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. No, no, I don't have much of a difficult time separating the art from the artist. I think that's just a value that I have in my life, to a point, I guess. But yeah, what a singular band, And
a band that, I mean, not only did they release incredible records, but they did so many things that were just completely outside of just coloring completely outside the lines. I remember they did that ambient, like accompaniment to
the Tribes of Neurosis.
Yeah, I was about to say, but that was meant to be like played alongside A Sun That Never Sets at the same time, and they overlapped with each other. It just blew my mind when that came out. I mean, that was just fucking incredible.
Yeah, I love that.
And then you go back to, a record like A Sun That Never Sets. It's one of the most beautiful, just emotive albums, particularly the title track that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a fucking incredible band.
As I've gotten to know Steve pretty well, my admiration like grows, especially for him. Like all those guys are great in their way, but Steve like kind of runs that band. Like when they check into a hotel, like he's the one like checking in. Like when they get to the airport, he's the one making sure the tickets are in place. He runs the label. Like he's on the roof of their warehouse in Boise, Idaho, where they get a shit ton of snow, like shoveling snow off the roof, where they have all of the Neurot discography. And he's got a full-time job. He's a school teacher.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
He's always had the whole time he's had a full-time job as a school teacher in not in Boise, I think he lives in Sandpoint, kind of like rural Idaho. Mr. Von Till teaching the youth.
Yeah.
And,
imagine being taught by Steve Von Till. Like I've always, there's a couple of folks I've met through the years where this guy's a teacher or, this dude teaches maths or whatever. I think to myself, imagine Steve Von Till walks in and, announces himself on your first day of the new semester. I mean, I'd fucking shit myself.
Yeah. But if you're like, 10 years old and you don't give a shit about Neurosis, you're just like, who's this weird dude with a beard,
They're also, they're one of those kinds of bands where you can discover Metallica at the age of 10 and get it.
Yeah.
I did. You're not going to get Neurosis until there's been significant development in your brain.
That's 100% true. Yeah. And I think because, there's a path of initiation in life. Like we encounter these I can't speak for everyone. I have encountered certain thresholds that are very difficult to pass through, but in passing through that threshold, you are initiated. You grow as a human being, and you have a wider view of the cosmos or greater love and compassion for the people around you or beings in general. And Neurosis is like an initiatory band. Like I think you have, to your point, you have to be at a certain place and be like ready to like open up to it.
What was the first Neurosis song that you heard out of interest? Or that really got
that
your
show
attention?
through Silver and
Oh,
Blood.
really?
Yeah. Like watching them with the projection, just being like, what the fuck is going on? Who are these people? Because the crazies came out of the mountains for that show. Just like dreadlocked, mountain-dwelling freaks.
I remember...
I was like 15.
Yeah.
It was just a lot to take in.
My discovery of them was at the end of... So MTV used to do Headbangers Ball, and they would have Into the Pit. That's where all the good shit was.
Yeah,
and right at the end of one of the Into the Pits, they did Locust. They played the video for Locust Star, which is... It's an odd-looking video.
I love it.
But I remember watching it, and they get to the end with that prayer, and it's like the world to power. It's like that, that which is above is that which is below, and it's just my mind was just blown. I was like, I'd never heard a almost like a breakdown that is like at once so angry and so emotional at the same time. It's just fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's very masculine.
Yes,
that's the interesting thing about Neurosis is that it's like unapologetically masculine in a very beautiful way.
Yeah,
and maybe. Just the way life unfolds sometimes, like maybe Scott is like manifesting like the really dark side of that. I don't know, it's like really heartbreaking. But then there's the beautiful side of it as well, like the strong and protective side. There's a bunch of ways to look at it. But yeah, they're a deep band. There's a lot there to unpack.
Just as a side note, one other thing that broke my heart about that whole situation was they had put out such an incredible album with Absent in Body, and I was like, oh fuck, is that running aground now as well? Because it doesn't seem like they're doing anything there again. They kind of hint at, they post a few photos every now and then on the socials, but yeah, nothing that would suggest there's going to be more music. And even if you listen to how the songs were written, you can hear that Scott's hands were very heavily into that. I can't imagine they're going to be able to recreate any of that without him.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want to talk a bit about your, how you grew up, your relationship with your brother, because you guys are the nucleus of the band. What was you're the eldest. What was your relationship like with Nathan growing up?
Well, we're 2 years apart. Really fucking different people. We have really, really different brains. But we play together. We play like Dungeons and Dragons together. I think he was always much more rebellious. Like I was like kind of a good student and didn't smoke weed until like later in life or whatever it is. I was more buttoned down. But, at the age of like 12 or 13, he was like, I'm done with this shit. I'm not going to school anymore. I have dreadlocks now with like skulls in them. I'm done. I'm going on a different path. So I credit him with like maybe opening that door for me a little bit. Yeah, there is something about bands that have brothers in them because even though it can be a very contentious relationship sometimes, there is a certain ability to work together very effectively because you just know someone so well from, as kids. And, music is playing, you play music. And if you play together as children, I think there's maybe certain like webs of possibility of collaboration that can be expanded upon.
100%, and that's kind of why I was asking you that question. The other day, I stumbled onto a live bootleg recording of Pantera doing Cold Gin.
Yeah, totally.
And this was kind of at the peak of their powers. And I said to the person who was listening to it with me, I was like, just listen to the connection between Dime and Vinny.
Yeah, totally.
That you cannot fucking rehearse. You can't. There's nothing you are going to be able to do to capture that.
Yeah.
Because those two guys, they have it because they're siblings.
Yeah.
And I've been very fascinated by that kind of sibling connection in bands, because there's not a great many bands where you got two brothers playing, but where you do have it and it works, there's a magic it creates that you cannot possibly recreate through any other means.
I think it can be recreated. I think maybe like James and Lars have that because they connected so young at like this pivotal time in life. I think that there can be like a brotherly bond that can be forged without blood.
Possibly. It feels to me like when I listen to Dime and Vinny, for example, there's something subconscious going on there.
I can see that.
And maybe you would have that to a certain degree with with James and with Lars, but to me there's like an effortlessness to that connection.
Yeah.
Like you know, the way they play, it sounds like it's not even practice. They just sit down and they just go. James and Lars are a little different, and I am a Metallica fan, so I'm not, you know, maybe less so recent.
Well,
recent
I mean,
material.
obviously.
But I mean, I still like, you know, I can get with Bleeding Me. I even have a slightly soft spot for Mama Said. I have a less soft spot.
Nothing past the Black Album.
Yeah. Or did it end for you? No, I can. There's a couple of songs on Load and Reload that over the years I've come to accept.
I can accept that you've accepted them, but I can't accept that. I love Some Kind of Monster, the movie.
Oh, really?
That's like my favorite Metallica thing.
Dude, that depressed me so much.
I love it.
I can't tell you.
How? Why? It's a story of triumph.
Because
For James, Lars looks like shit in it.
Yeah, I was
Seems
such
like
you know, so I grew up in South Africa, as you can tell from the accent. Yeah, and in South Africa, you were very disconnected from any music. So there was no bands that played there. The first real live act I saw was when I moved to the UK in 2002, when I was 22 years old. So James to me was he was one of my absolute heroes.
Yeah.
And to see him in that state is very difficult for me to process. Really? Because I'd placed him on such a, and you know, it's probably, the fault probably sits on my side, right? But I had placed him on such a pedestal that to see the guy that I hero worshipped to such a degree as a you know, teenager, as a young man, be like that, it was tough to deal with.
Interesting. I feel exactly the opposite way. Because I identified with that so much. Because I've been there. Like I've been broken down. Just like reaching a point in life where everything just fucking cracks and falls apart. And I don't know, I thought it was like, I enjoyed seeing a hero in a very human, quintessentially human position of coming up to a place where you just can't like lie to yourself anymore or like live with a facade. And it's not pretty to watch and it's not cool at all, but it's deeply human to reach a place where the story you tell the world or yourself, about who you are, as cool Metallica frontman or me or you or anyone, if that's not the truth of who you are, or if it no longer is the truth of who you are at a certain point, you shatter and hopefully find a way to come out of it.
Yeah. I think the other thing that, for me, that period, so Some Kind of Monsters and Anger, after that, he was just never the same.
I agree.
James that I
100% agree.
You know, like I still go back and I watch, you know, stuff from the early 90s, the late 80s. I mean, he was a beast. Like as far as frontmen are concerned, no one came close to him.
I agree.
And I do think, I'm curious to get your take on this actually. I do think Jason was a really essential cog in that band.
I totally agree.
His presence on stage was just, I like Robert Grillo very much, but he was, there's something badass about him.
Yeah, he's a pit boss.
Yeah, uncompromising. And I'm a big fan of Anarchy, so I like on stage when he's stepping up and he's doing like a verse of Seek and Destroy, or, he's doing the opening verse to Whiplash. That just, to me, is just, I love it. I absolutely love it. And they've lost that. And they lost it to me after that.
Oh, I totally agree. Exactly. Yeah, like what you saw on stage when he was on fire as a frontman was a version of him. And when he lost that, they should have quit.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, like, I understand why it was hard to watch that, especially if it's someone that you really love and idolize.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was equally hard for me to see the dissolution of Pantera, because Pantera was another, Dimebag and Phil both. I adored those guys. Later on, I met Phil, and actually he turned out to be an incredibly nice guy. Yeah. And I saw him play with Down. That was very, very cool as well. That felt to me like it was a bit vindicating.
Yeah.
But
he seems cool.
Yeah. Well, Down in particular, I think, has made some superb music. But just getting back to the connection between you and Nathan, when you're in the band now, when you're producing music, I thought Primordial Arcana, by the way, was probably, in my view, the most beautifully complete Wolves on the Throne record that you guys have put out. I adored it. But what is it that between the two of you guys, what makes you so productive, and what makes the relationship work at a creative level, at a level that benefits the band?
Because it's because we're so different, and we really do approach art from very different vantage points, like almost different fucking realities. There's a tension that's created, and it's somewhere in reconciling that tension that a good record can be made. Sometimes that tension has gotten to the point when it's like untenable. Like there's been times when we've not gotten along very well.
Yeah.
Especially when it was just the two of us. Like after, in Wolves on the Throne Room, there's been 3 other guitar players. Will Dawn played on Diadem and Two Hunters, and then, not Will Dawn, Rick Dawn played on Diadem and Two Hunters, and then Will Lindsay played on Black Cascade. And then on Celestial Lineage, it was just me and Nathan. And then on Thrice Woven, Cody just started to kind of come in at the very end. And with Primordial Arcana, like Cody is fully in there. He's like fully in the cult. And that makes things a lot more stable. When it's just the two of us, it can get pretty fiery. But whatever, the triangle is a very stable shape. And that works in a creative context as well for us.
Now, what is it about Cody because that's a tight-knit bond to have to penetrate. Right?
Yeah.
And I would imagine, just reading between the lines, I've heard you talk about this on other interviews too, it would take an extraordinarily special person to get into that place.
Yeah, he's the only guy that could do it.
So what is it about Cody? What made him able to do that?
Well, I think it's like fate. I think it's magic. I think it's like love. I think it's like it's just like the correct path in life. The right people come to you at the right time to be with you in life. But, to quantify it a bit, like he comes from the same background. Like, when he was 15, he was hopping trains barefoot, listening to black metal with a bullet belt, And so we have like a similar cultural background. We love the same kind of music. And we have the same approach to nature, I suppose. In that all of us are able to allow the spirits of nature to speak to us, transmute it inside of our bodies, and then broadcast it back as music. So we have similar approaches in a way that's very cohesive. And I think in any good working group, everyone has strengths. And so we all hear different things. Like when we listen to a mix of the new record, each one of us can spot something that could be better. And that's something that I would not have heard. Like Nathan hears stuff that I can't hear and Cody can't hear, and go around the circle. We all have like valid perspective, and we all trust each other to always put the album and the band first. Like, I know that neither of those guys would ever say, my guitar should be louder here for any reason other than they genuinely believe that's the best thing for Wolves in the Throne Room, and more specifically for this song on the record. So there's like a very deep trust in our ethics and commitment to the art.
What first made you decide to pick up the drums? Because again, I've watched you play on video, and you've got this kind of attacking style of playing, but you really, really seem in your element. And again, it's something that over the course of this podcast, I've become increasingly interested in what draws people to certain instruments, because that instrument is your voice. Some people are natural frontmen, some people are some people are Angus Young, and they just, will fucking rip the most insane guitar solo you can imagine. But what was it that drew you to the drums? That's sure.
I have thought about that, and I don't know, because I don't play drums really. I never practice drums. I don't play them. If we go on tour, I'll get in shape and rehearse, or if we're working on a record, I'll play drums, but I'll never do it just for fun or just to practice. You could probably hear that sometimes. And that's similar to Lars. That guy doesn't practice. He's running the business. He's whatever, working out merchandising deals with somebody.
Selling art.
He's selling Basquiat paintings, yes. It's just, I do the drums when it's time to do the drums, but I don't really consider myself a drummer. And why I ended up playing the drums, I have to think about that. Because when I was really young, like 14, 15, I played bass and then switched to drums. Why did I do that? This is interesting. You're gonna watch me go back in time to when I was like maybe 16, because there was no other drummers around. That's why. Like, I think it's kind of like a trope that like it's really hard to find a good drummer. And in our small town, there was, like high school bands are always like that. You have like kind of a metal guy and then a guy who's like kind of like a hip hop dude and then someone like some Christian rock guy, and they all have to kind of be in a band together. And our previous drummer, when we were like, 13 or 14, was kind of like that vibe. And so I think I stepped into the role out of necessity. And I very much like come into it over the years. Like I didn't even really consider myself a musician until like a couple of years ago. Like it just didn't even occur to me that like, oh wait, that's what I'm doing. Like I'm 46, I'm not gonna do anything else. Like I guess that's what I am. It just never really occurred to me.
You're very closely connected to the music though, because you've been involved in the production side of things for a long time now. You also did you redid and did what ultimately is the final mix for Primordial Arcana.
Yeah.
By the way, let's just pause there for a second. What made you decide to remix the album?
Well, we wanted to take on like a reasonable challenge. And so for PA, we abbreviate all of our records because it's too long to say or to write in a Google Doc, which is how we organize all our shit. We were like, okay, we don't want to work with another producer. We want to do it ourselves, DIY. It seems like a reasonable challenge to record everything and have it sound good. Like, okay, we can manage the microphones and the file management and that side of it, but there's no way we can mix it. That's just a bridge too far. And so we recorded everything, it sounded cool. We rendered everything, sent it off to a mix engineer, a very highly regarded metal mix guy, producer, who's made records we love. And he had it for a few months, and I got it back, and when I heard it, like my jaw just dropped, like I was shattered. Like my jaw just dropped to the ground, and I walked outside just like in a daze, like, oh fuck, what are we gonna do? Because we'd been working on the record for a year, like just like writing and like honing and making it perfect, and just all of the magic had been just sucked out of it. It was just a dry bone. It was like in a troll's, I had the image of a troll just like gnawing on a femur of someone that he'd killed and eaten, and just like threw it. And this dry bone was our record that we'd like poured our like soul into. And there was a moment of like despair, like what are we gonna do? Like we can't try this with another mix engineer. And we realized no one can do it, like we have to do it. And so I don't know how I got the job, I guess because I'm the most technically proficient and in the most interested in the like recording and producing side of things. And so we had to buy a bit more gear, some analog stuff, because we're also nerds with sound and just want things to sound a certain way and have a bit of an old school sound. And just worked on it for a few months, just mixing every day. I would just wake up, mix, watch YouTube videos about how to use a certain plugin or how to use a certain piece of gear, sleep on the couch, wake up, mix, and mixed the first song, Mountain Magic, I think 100 times. Like in the session files, I have like 100 mixes, and the 100th one was like, all right, that sounds cool. And that was the template going forward.
I'm curious with this producer, and again, they'll go unnamed. What do you think went wrong? Like, did they miss the brief? Did they miss the vision of the band? Like, we realized, oh shit, this music is the forest. Like it is the western cedar tree. It is this mountain lake that we went to. And if you're not, and it's also our whole, as we discussed in this interview, like our whole background. It's like that, like everything we did, like Cody hopping the train when he was 14, or selling acid in Missoula, or being at this house, or like this whole journey came to here. And if you weren't a part of that, there's no way you could understand what the music was, like the heart of the music. And so we had to do it. Yeah, it's not his fault. Like I'm sure it sounded good by some
standard, but it wasn't true to what the music actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just we spoke about it before we actually started recording. Your reference tracks when you come in to a new studio, or you're kind of busy getting your ear tuned in. What are they?
Slaughter of the Soul, the At the Gates record, which I think sounds really good to my ears. There's a younger dude named Arthur Rizek. Do you know Arthur Rizek?
No.
He plays in I want to say Eternal Champion. I could be wrong, but one of these like power metal bands. He lives in Philadelphia, produces like tons of great metal records. He produced like the recent Cavalera Conspiracy record.
Oh, really? What,
Yeah.
the Bestial Devastation re-recording?
He did that.
Oh,
yeah, he's like deep with the Cavaleras.
I'm about to say, that's
Yeah.
because that is super impressive.
Yeah, he's awesome.
When
I love
they
this guy.
first announced that Morbid Vision Special Devastation re-recording, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
fuck,
yeah.
this is going to be garbage.
Yeah.
And then it came out, and I was like, oh my God.
I have a feeling a lot of that, the reason it was successful, has to do with Arthur. Because he's just a fucking deep head. Like,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
generation, he's probably 35, 36, so he's 10 years younger than I am. But I can just tell he's like one of those guys, like,
Yeah.
who's gonna have like a long career in music. He's just so committed to like metal, to music, and just one of the real people. And so one of his tracks, strangely enough, not a metal track, he also produces stuff for Ghostmane.
Okay.
This whatever, he's like this weird, long-haired, kind of weird metal guy, but somehow he's like also produces these weird trap tracks for Ghostmane. And the low end on this one Ghostmane track, he worked some magic with it, with compression. It's like the loudest low end, but it's like incredibly tight. So that's a reference track for low end. Because a reference track doesn't have to be music you like. It's like music that does a very specific thing in a frequency range in a room. If I listen to those two things, I'm pretty tuned in. And Justice for All. I listen to Injustice for All. Sometimes as a reminder of what not to do with the low end.
I was just about to say, so you know what not to
The
do.
mid-range is sick.
Yeah.
The low end, it doesn't happen on that record.
I never understood why. I mean, I understand the surface level, but like, why would you be so spiteful as to turn the bass down on something?
Cocaine. Right?
Yeah.
Cocaine, ego, which tend to feed each other in a very fucked up way.
Yeah, no, that's you're probably correct. As we kind of wrap things up, we've touched on the connection to nature. You can't talk to anyone from Wolves in the Throne Room without bringing that up. I'm curious, at what point in your life did you really start to become acutely aware of that? Because I think it's something that's always there, but it's, when did you first gain the awareness of it?
Well, the interesting thing is that where I live now is a mile away from where I grew up. So the forest where our studio is at, which is a very like blessed piece of land, because of course almost the entire Northwest was logged off from 1890 to 1930. All of the primeval forest was cut down except for like tiny little pockets. And so the forest where we live was clear cut in like 1910 or so, let's say 1910. And so I've grown up in that forest. And so when I was a kid, that forest was like scrubby second growth. Like trees were coming up, but it was very much a young forest that had just been like fucking traumatized and bombed from just all of the energy of the sun creating trees had been for thousands of years was just extracted in the space of 20 or 30 years. But now, even in the past 10 years, it's now a young but mature Cascadian rainforest. So the trees are 110 years old. And with that comes all the other plants. Like once the trees are big enough, the understory can come in, like the smaller plants that live under the trees. And then certain animals come back. Like I remember very clearly about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I heard the first raven in this bit of forest. Because when I was a kid, there was never ravens, but now they're everywhere. Because the ravens were waiting to come down from the higher mountains until the trees were big enough, until the habitat was right for them. And so in a lot of ways, like Wolves in the Throne Room is like that forest, like growing up or healing in a way. I don't feel it as much now, but certainly when the band was starting, you probably hear in the music, there's like rage. There's like, what the fuck did you just do to me, you know? And that's like that's like the voice of a specific tree. Like, what did you just do? Like, the way this is done is you talk to me for a while, you develop a relationship, and it's co-creative. And if I give my consent, then you can cut me down and use me for some sacred purpose. That's the way it's always been done. And all of a sudden these people came in and just wiped the whole thing. And so there was a sense of trauma, shock, disbelief. And a lot of that's woven into the music. It still is, but I feel as though as the forest has healed, the frequency and the music has changed a little bit. I hear it at least. But I remember like one tree, I've been like hanging out with this one tree for 40 years. Or with Devil's Club. I remember the first time I encountered Devil's Club, which is like the most sacred plant traditionally for the indigenous people in Salish lands. It's this crazy plant. It's like this, it grows about 12 feet tall. It's like these viney, snake-like tendrils with these massive leaves covered in needle-sharp spikes. But at certain times of year, you can dig up the root, which I would not recommend anyone do without spending years like developing a relationship with not just that plant in general, but with a specific plant. And you can like strip off the bark and chew the root, and interesting things happen to your mind. And I remember like my first encounters with those plants, like that plant. And I've been hanging out with it for 40 years.
So you like where you grew up? Did you grow up in a rural area?
Yeah.
So never been a city boy.
No, I love cities. And I don't have this like huge like nature's over here and humans and their shitty world is over here. Like it's all the process of life unfolding, and we might have preferences about what we think is beautiful and what is not. And I think there's ways of being and living that are honorable and in tune and ways that are not. But like, I don't know. For me, it's important not to try to put nature on some pedestal. Like we are human animals, and we're as much a part of nature as anything else. And the cities we create are as much a part of nature as anything else, in my opinion.
Final question, I have to ask this: the full-length sequel to Primordial Arcana. Are there plans afoot to do it?
Yeah.
What's the trajectory for the band now?
We're pumped. We're pumped up for riffs. We're on tour right now, which is like a very fucking laser-focused mind state. But when we get home, we have months of time blocked out for writing. Like we each have a home studio, and we will work individually and together and write new songs. Yeah, we feel very inspired and have like a lot of ideas for another record.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Aaron, this has been such a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's great to speak to you.
And folks, thank you very much for being part of this. It is greatly appreciated. And of course, make sure that you check out Wolves in the Throne Room on the main stage this evening.
That was a track called Beholden to the Clan, taken from the EP Crypt of Ancestral Knowledge by Wolves in the Throne Room, released on September the 29th, 2023 via Relapse Records. We didn't quite get as much time as I would have liked to talk about new Wolves in the Throne Room material, or at least recent Wolves in the Throne Room material, but I feel like we laid out so many different topics there that they almost demand a return visit from Aaron to Mean Street Studios. And hopefully we can make that happen sooner rather than later, because I really enjoyed that conversation. And I hope that you all enjoyed it also. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that I was going to do a quick wrap up of Fortress Festival, and I'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly off the cuff, as they say. First up, let's talk about the good, because it far outweighs any negatives. Scarborough, where the town where this festival was held, is a tiny little seaside town in North Yorkshire, England. It's kind of off the beaten path, only has about 62,000 people that live there. You could tell that the townsfolk were looking upon the descent of black-clad black metal fans with some degree of curiosity. But I've got to say, this was my first visit to Scarborough, and I really enjoyed it. We stayed at a lovely hotel. I thought the town was quaint, almost kind of the part where the venue for the festival was almost felt like it was frozen in the 70s. You kind of didn't really see a lot of chain stores or chain restaurants. You saw these kind of funfair rides and just little touches that kind of feel like they got stuck in the 70s, but again, in a good way. As for the venue itself, my understanding is this is the first time that, or this is the second iteration of the festival, but the first time that they've hosted it in Scarborough Spa, it's the Scarborough Spa Theatre, I think is the official name. And it's got a very interesting layout. You come in by the entrance, and the way that they'd set it up was when you come in by the entrance, you kind of saw a bar in front of you and the merch tables to your left and some merch tables to your right. Then if you turned right, you would move into the main room. Beyond the main room, there was a smaller theater, which is where we did all the Fortress Forum chats. And then if you went the opposite direction and you turned left at the entrance, you could go down. There was a single food vendor and like an open area where people could sit and chill out outside. And then the second room, or the second stage, was way to the other side of the building. And there was enough separation between the main room and the second stage that there was absolutely no threat of sound bleeding over or anything like that. The only drawback with the second room was the fact that the capacity in there was quite limited. And when they had Mysterium in there, for example, I mean, it was packed. The main room never felt quite that crowded. I mean, even though the festival was sold out, it's such a big venue that it actually, or you always felt like you had your personal space, with the exception of that second room. So that was another positive. I think the lineup was great. I think the way that the festival was run was fucking excellent. I think considering the fact that for these dudes, I think this is the first time they've run a festival at this scale. And when I say these dudes, I refer to Reaper Agency. They did a really, really good job. I want to say a big thank you to Gary and to Dominic for hosting Paige and I at the festival, for making us feel so welcome. Dominic, the PR manager for the festival, did such a great job of setting up a media room and kind of creating a separate area where we could get our shit together and get set up. Great dude, and just did an immaculate job on the day. So as far as the lineup is concerned, I didn't have time to see everyone. I did see Andraca, who were really good. I saw Ante Inferno, who featured a guest appearance by the great AV of the band Abduction, many times guest of Into the Necrosphere, and you know how much I love guest appearances on stage. So to me, that was a real treat. The bands that stole the show completely, as far as I'm concerned, were twofold, or two bands. Guerrilla, number one. First time I've ever seen them, and they just reinforced my opinion, which I have shared on this podcast many times, that band is going to be one of the biggest things in black metal on the face of the earth. And here's how I know for sure that they are something special. midway through the first song, Paige, my fiance, leaned over to me and said, "That is intense and absolutely amazing." And considering the fact that she doesn't listen to this music whatsoever, and she could see them play and see something incredible was going on, that to me is the sign of a band that breathes some very rare air. But yeah, they absolutely deserve the kudos. Their show was phenomenal. Tons of energy. Every single song performed brilliantly. Real atmosphere on stage. Yeah, just absolutely superb. And then Ultha probably share the number one spot with them. Ultha did a phenomenal performance last year in Derby at Reaperfest, where I was as well. They're kind of a band who succeed on stage in spite of the fact that they almost knowingly stack the odds against themselves. They play really long songs. Their songs are very complex. Their songs are mostly very fast, but they always pull it off. I think the magic is in the execution. I think the fact that Ralph Schmidt, who's one of the visionaries behind the band, I think the fact that he's so into pro wrestling, at least, or that he's so into just the entertainment aspect of what music is, and has such a wide taste in lots of different styles of music. I think he injects some of that into the band. That's kind of some of the X factor that just helps with that execution. But yeah, they were fucking fantastic. Third on the list. Now, actually, I say it's a joint first, and then third on the list, Miss Teerming. Show Stealers at Inferno, marked down just a hair this time round because they once again neglected to play one of my favorite Miss Teerming songs, Ingen Verkoon, a song that I personally think is perfect for the live environment. I have no fucking idea why they don't play it, but anyway, they didn't play it. They were incredible, though. I think the other reason why maybe I didn't enjoy their set so much was in that second, or by that second stage, that room really was very, very tight. You felt like you were in the middle of a fucking South American prison there. Other bands that were good, but didn't necessarily warrant a mention amongst the elite of the elite. I thought Stripticon were decent. They started off really, really well. And then I kind of felt like the show faded a little bit as time went on. I did meet Tom Warrior. He did a conversation, or did a talk that I recorded with Dale Patterson. Dale Patterson interviewed him, and it was a very interesting conversation. It kind of made me see him through different eyes. However, Paige mentioned to me, didn't actually know anything about the background, And again, for clarity, for anyone new listening to this that hasn't heard the story yet, it's very stupid and silly, but I used to be friends with him on Facebook, and I once made a joke and posted a picture of a steak that I was grilling, and I said, "Happy Saturday, vegans." And moments later realized that I'd been blocked by Tom Warrior himself, and one of the ways in which he responded to my shameful display of juvenile humor was to post a picture, or post a frame around himself around his profile picture on Facebook saying, "For the animals." So I've been taunted and teased by Marco of Stellar Master Elite about that ever since. It is fucking funny. But either way, I saw him, thought it was interesting. Interesting conversation, nice guy, took a photo with him. Paige said to me afterwards, "I don't think he likes you," which I was like, why? I'm such a likable man. But she apparently picked up a vibe. So I don't know if it's female intuition. Perhaps she was right. My understanding for anyone who wants to see that conversation is that it will not be released. I have it here, though. So if you beg me hard enough, who knows? I might invite you over to the mean streets, into the Necrosphere studio, and we can watch it together. The other band to point out that I saw, Black Braid. Very good. And again, the makings of an excellent band. However, John of Black Braid fame made a cardinal mistake. This time not getting drunk and, accusing people of being racists, but something potentially even worse, and that is turning to the drummer for extended periods of time in between songs. I absolutely hate it. I think it's one of the most insane things that a frontman can do. You are the frontman, engage with the audience. I hate when bands do that. Absolutely hate it. So he did that a couple of times. To me, that's a big no-no. In terms of delivery, it was actually pretty cool, the songs. Like the the vibe on stage that he created. Like when all cylinders were firing, they were very, very good. I just feel like his stagecraft is a bit of a work in progress. Right, the bad, as I said, not really a whole lot. I wish that they could have had a few more food vendors. In the venue, they only had one food stall selling different German sausages, very delicious, but the choice is rather limited. And then they had a restaurant that was kind of at the when you just came in by the entrance, you could find it, and it was booked out exclusively for people who were attending the festival. But maybe 1 or 2 additional food vendors would have been nice. I think probably the most complaints came as a result of the sound in the main room. And, because this is quite an old building, I think the sound engineers really had their hands full trying to tame that particular room. I don't know how they get over it. I don't know whether they can go to GIK Acoustics and maybe buy some, standalone panels or just something portable. Maybe they just buy a bunch of panels, drill them into the wall and take them out at the end of the festival. But either way, the room is quite echoey. And because it's quite echoey, the music has a tendency to sound quite muddy. And also, in my experience, it had an effect of sounding a bit too bright. It did sound an awful lot better when I watched Guerrilla, but they were the one band that I watched from the balcony. And from there, it actually sounded pretty cool. But when you were down on the ground, it was too loud, muddy. It's a credit to bands like Ultha and actually even Crypticon that they managed to do well, within that. The other bad, nothing really. The crowd was cool. There was one dickhead security guard that was, threw his weight around a little too much when we first arrived, but, nothing that was insurmountable. Overall, nothing else to complain about. The ugly is the fact, and this is a top tip for anybody who's visiting Scarborough for the first time, they don't have Uber. So we were trying to get back to our hotel, which was only about 3 miles away from the venue on the first night. I had selected many Uber services because you can book an Uber, but all it does is it says we're connecting you with a driver, and then 15 minutes later it just says it can't find a driver, and then you find out they actually don't have Uber in Scarborough whatsoever. So we had to use a local cab company, and by that point, you've got all the fucking drunken lowlifes that are, straggling back to their homes. So, it was about a 50-minute wait. So that was a bit of a pain. But that was really the only ugly element about it. The festival overall, as I said, was a big success. We will definitely be going again in 2025. I loved not just seeing the bands, but it was great seeing a lot of my friends, meeting several of the Legion as well. So once again, I just want to say thank you very much to Dominic and to Gary for hosting us and for putting on such an awesome show. A great success from my perspective. The one miss on my part was a band called Regarde les Hommes Tomber. And once again, I know I've mispronounced their name, but everybody that I spoke to after their performance on the second stage said that they were one of the bands of the weekend. And after the great Scott Bamford's insistence, I checked them out. I checked out their most recent record, Ascension, which Season of Mist put out back in 2020, and it is absolutely sensational. So what better way to wrap up my review of Fortress Festival than with a song by the band. I'm not going to bother pronouncing the name again unless I absolutely have to. This is a song called A New Order. You just listened to a track called New Order off the album Ascension. The band, and I will attempt one more time to pronounce their name properly, Regarde les hommes tombés. Apparently, the show stealers, who unfortunately I missed at Fortress Festival. But yeah, hopefully I get to see many of the Legion out in force again in 2025 when we descend upon Scarborough. But yeah, what a fun festival, what a good time, and what a fucking great song. Right now, my friends, if you think that the Roadhouse remake deserves an Oscar nomination next year, then it's time for you to hit the bricks. Because this is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, my friends, we kick off on metalstorm.net, as always, the finest metal news website in all the land. I am going to give the first couple of headlines a wise and wide berth for obvious reasons, if anybody's watching this on YouTube. And I'm going to jump straight into Dark Funeral, who are celebrating 30 years of their debut EP. It says here, the almighty Dark Funeral are celebrating 30 years of their self-titled debut EP by now releasing Dark Funeral 30th Anniversary Edition on August the 9th via Century Media Records. All four tracks from that EP, newly recorded and remixed by David Castillo, remastered by Thomas Pleck Johansson. They do include a link below, so let's give it a listen. It says here, Lord Araman commented in January 1994, Black Moon, rest in peace, and I put our entire income and savings into a recording session and pressing 1,000 copies of our 4-track debut mini-CD, a mini-CD we released ourselves to. To now reach this significant milestone with a epic 30th anniversary is of course very honorable for me and the band. 3 decades of Swedish black metal filled with precious memories. It is time to reflect on what started it all, a 30-year epic journey filled with experiences and an unbreakable bond. And in this honor, we have breathed new life into these legendary songs and given them an honest but modern update. There was a update to the song back in 2005, if memory serves me correctly, on Ateru Tortus Sanctus. And that was voiced by Emperor Magus Caligula, otherwise known as Massa Broberg, who also featured on a couple of the early Hypocrisy albums. Very, very capable vocalist, and you know, a lot of people are really massive fans of the Emperor Magus Caligula era of Dark Funeral. And then of course there's the original that featured Temgaroth as vocalist. So I kind of feel like before we deliver a verdict on this song one way or the other, it behooves us to quickly listen to those other 2 versions and hear how they stack up. So first one we're going to check out is the one that was included on the debut EP with Temgaroth on vocals. We'll give that a 60-second airing. Okay, and now the Emperor Magus Caligula version. Right, that one is out of contention immediately, this version. The version that appeared on Altera Totus Sanctus. And then it comes down to the original versus the re-recording. There are things about the re-recording that I really like. I think the drum sound is very cool. I think the guitar sound generally is good, and I like the vocals, but I don't know, there's something about the original that's just got a hair more urgency, bit more aggression, and even though the drums sound quite tinny, they're quite tinny in a charming way. I don't know, maybe it just takes me back to a great time in my life, but there's just something about it that just works really, really well. So yeah, I'm not gonna write off the re-recording, because as we learned with these Cavalera Conspiracy re-recordings, if done correctly, if executed to a turn, they can be absolutely fantastic. And this does sound good, but if I were to go back and I were to listen to those songs again, I think I know what I would stick with. If I had the desire to listen to Early Dark Funeral, I would listen to Early Dark Funeral. Okay, right. Live Loss are a band out of Denmark who have just put out a new music video. It says here, melodic death metal representatives Live Loss have unveiled a Simon Gorm Eskildsen directed music video for the song Usurpers. The latter serves as a first taste of their forthcoming third album, The Crescent King, due out on October the 4th, 2024. The outing was produced and mixed by Jacob Bredal and mastered by Brad Boatwright. It's not bad. The music video is decent. The riff during the verse I actually quite like. I would say when the song speeds up, it properly loses me, because I feel like that blast beat, it feels like a box ticking exercise. It feels like they're going down a list of, well, we've had the mid-tempo piece, now we need to speed things up for the next sequence. It doesn't feel like there's a natural build up to it. It doesn't feel like it serves a purpose. The vocals as well, to me, a little bit dicey. There's something about them that I just don't necessarily find convincing. That, of course, is a theme that has been commonplace on this podcast and the news rant for many months, many years even. Authenticity. I see Live Lost as a band that would be a gateway band. If you're just getting into extreme music, maybe you're 2 years into, I don't know, your first fucking Emperor album. Actually, no, I take that back. Not Emperor. Your first, band that uses double bass and screaming, and you hear Live Lost, you might go, yeah, that's very good. But for a salty dog and old head like myself, it doesn't quite cut the mustard. Okay, Saltatio Mortis, We Might Be Giants video launched. No idea what these guys sound like. I have clicked on the article to discover what I could only describe as a questionable thumbnail, but either way, it says here, Saltatio Mortis' new record, Finsterwacht, has officially been released. Check out a new video for the song called We Might Be Giants, featuring guest performances by Christina Scabbia and Peyton Parrish. Christina Scabbia, of course, of Lacuna Coil. She's a pretty competent vocalist. I quite like her. She's no Chelsea Wolfe, but she's not bad. But I enter this one with some degree of trepidation. Let's hear what it sounds like. Got to tip your hat to these guys. They have achieved what I heretofore certainly hadn't seen in actuality, in practice, and I didn't necessarily think was possible. They've somehow found a way to take all the most annoying elements of power metal and all the most irritating aspects of nu metal and cram it all together into one steaming pile of shit. Moving on, the next band that has caught my eye, Drift Into Black, have posted a new track. December is the new single from gothic doom metal outfit Drift Into Black's upcoming long player, Voices Beneath the Rubble. It has surfaced online in the form of a music video that was shot at Bulletproof Studios. Again, not familiar with Drift Into Black. Let's hear what it sounds like. Oh my god, that is fucking awful. That is music that is primarily written for and potentially by people with a fetish for bum sweat. Just fucking abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. The lyrics suck. The music stinks. The vocals are fucking diabolical and in the worst way possible. So, moving on. Grimheart. Oh, fuck, I was just about to start reading the article and I saw it said Hungarian extreme power folk. Fuck that. Codex Mortis. Unleash It Dies With Me track. Black Metal Unity. Codex Mortis. I'm almost relieved to be reading about a black metal band. Have released It Dies With Me, a brand new preview track from their Tales of Woe long player, which hits the streets on June the 21st. I think we listened to a Codex Mortis track not too long ago, and as far as I recall, I wasn't overly impressed by it, but that being said, let's give this one a try. So, I think the production's pretty decent. It definitely is very punchy, you know, a big soundstage, which I like. The performances, particularly the drummer, you know, sounds pretty fiery, sounds pretty spicy. But there's something about this that just is also quite, I'm quite indifferent to it. I feel like I've heard this song even before, you know, even before we hit the 30-second mark. I felt like I'd already heard the song 100 times previously. So yeah, it's not terrible, but it's certainly not going to it's not going to raise my temperature, and especially not in a year like this. I mean, I've been putting together a working list of my top 30 of 2024. And there are, as things stand right now, there are 23, in my view, very, very credible contenders, you know, who could quite easily remain on that list, and it would be, in any year, highly respectable. And we've only just come out the other side of May. So, you know, in some ways, actually having less new music incoming allows me to clear out the fucking insane backlog of good stuff I've got to listen to. Yeah, Codex Mortis won't be placed on the backlog. Anyway, moving on. Reigning Phoenix joined forces with Rock of Angels Records. When I first glanced at, I thought, you know, have they gotten back, or has Marcus Steiger gotten back into the Christian metal game? Because he was pretty big on pushing Mortification back in the day, even though Mortification was complete and utter garbage. No, apparently Rock of Angels is just some German hard rock label, which you know, I'm sure they can make a lot of money out of it, which is why they're, you know, which is why they're doing or have entered into that partnership. Anyway, speaking of the Germans, Destruction have premiered a brand new single called No Kings, No Masters. It will be part of their next full-length installment due in early 2025, so they're certainly getting the PR cycle started early for this one. I think I was about to say Dark Funeral. Destruction put out a record 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And considering my vague recollection of it, it probably didn't make the sort of impact that perhaps the band had anticipated when they put it out. But let's hear what No Kings, No Masters offers us. Like the lead work, the main riff sounds cool, production's decent, music video is not bad. The one lyric in the verse, "Stop the hate, change your fate," is so atrocious it almost puts me off the song entirely. But what I would give, or where I will give Destruction credit, is this particular track I would listen to 1,000,000 times over before I pay 5 seconds worth of attention to creators hate Uber Alice, which truly was one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. So yeah, this isn't bad. Again, is it going to be something that I look forward to, with any great excitement in 2025? No. Right, moving on. Sarka present In Total Allegiance single. It says here, Sarka are premiering In Total Allegiance, the second and final single from their upcoming studio album Endo Freight, which is due tomorrow, June the 7th. So this came out last week by the time that we're recording this on Soul Cellar Records. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's hear what the song sounds like. Yeah, that definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Nocturno Colto sounds fucking cool. This song to me, more than maybe anything that I've heard Sarka do, is it kind of has a feel for me like this is what Darkthrone might have ended up sounding like had they continued to focus on being a black metal band. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that one. You guys let me know in the comments what you think, but there's definitely, this is about as close as I've heard Sarka get to being an extension of Darkthrone in a good way than at any point on their previous 7 records. I think the riff is fucking cool. That breakdown when the song gets spicy, when you get into that scumbag beat, I fucking love that. I think the production is great. It's got it's got plenty of muscle to it, but nothing sounds overproduced. So yeah, love this. Really, really good. I'm going to go back. I'm going to give it another 60 seconds. That bit of atmosphere right there is such a nice touch. It just helps lift that song up that little bit more and actually make it very, very memorable. Yeah, this, I think, actually, I'm not just going to give this a thumbs up. This gets a full top notch. That bit is fucking gold. Yeah, without a doubt, top notch. That is excellent. There's something about the, I don't know whether they're using keys or whether they're using a sample in the background. There's something about that reminds me a little bit of the score to The First Omen, which I watched last night, and I really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting much from it because horror prequels generally tend to be rubbish, but this turned out to be very, very good. I think the main actress she's no Mia Goth, so there were a couple of points where I watched it and I was like, her acting isn't all that great. But I think overall they did a very good job. They nailed the feel of. It sort of riffs on Rosemary's Baby and on the original Omen. I think they'd managed to do that very, very well. It's pretty beautifully filmed. I love it. I think it's very, very good. They also, at the end, without throwing out any spoilers here, they seem to kind of set it up for a few more installments of the franchise. And if they were to go down the direction that they've taken with The First Omen, I am down with that. Okay, we get back to music. Enophelion have dropped a new single, A Winter Moon's Gleam. The new single by Enophelion's forthcoming studio album, Reaper Dawn, is out now. The Swedes will unleash the new music output on August the 9th, 2024 via Century Media Records. Love it, and I have enjoyed it more and more as the song has progressively moved along. We're only 2 minutes in, but yeah, that's another top notch for sure. Aelion, of course, featuring no less than 3 active members of Necrophobic: Sebastian Rumstead, who's the vocalist, and I think plays guitars on this particular record. He was bassist for them previously. Johan Bergebach, who is the guitarist for the band, and then Tobias Christiansen. So kudos on them for getting together and putting out not only a great Necrophobic record this year, but this album, it might make it onto that contenders list that I was talking about earlier. This is fucking excellent. You guys know how I feel about a breakdown. If this wasn't going to get a top notch before, that sealed the deal. That is excellent. 10 out of 10 for Aelion. And I do think that we heard, if memory serves me correctly, we actually listened to the previous single as well. And I remember liking it, but nowhere near as much as I like this song. This is fucking excellent. Just the right amount of melody, really great, memorable, catchy hooks, and just a fucking nastiness to the delivery. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Okay, the Jesus Lizard are back. Not that I care. And other bit of news that no doubt you're already aware of. The court decision about the name dispute vis-a-vis Batushka has been reached. It says here, after the very publicly controversial split/name dispute that made, I'm going to fuck up his name, but anyway, Bartek Kryziuk's Batushka and Krzysztof Dabrakowski's Batushka spawn out of the original Batushka, during which time both incantations toured and released music using the Batushka name. It seems like the Polish legal system has finally reached a conclusion about the name ownership. Krzysztof Dabrakowski shared the following image. It says, on May the 29th, 2024 in Warsaw, at a non-public hearing in the case of Krzysztof Dabrakowski and Bartek Kryziuk for the protection of personal rights in the field of advertising or promotion, for the protection of copyright, and in the case of a counterclaim by Bartek Kryziuk for the blah, 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 blah. The court ruled that the main claim prohibits Bartek Kryziuk, without the consent of Krzysztof Dabrakowski, from using the name Batushka, and prohibits the defendant from disseminating information that he has exclusive rights to the name Batushka. So, yeah, so though it does seem like the decision of the court has been reached in favor of Dabrakowski, Bartek Kryziuk's Batushka's claim that the decision is not final and can be appealed against. The band's team posted the following message, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through all that shit. One thought that I do have, though, and again, I'd love to hear your opinions on this, but I kind of get the feeling that the whole Batushka court case drama, I kind of feel like it hurt the band. Because I remember when they first came out, they were really on the ascent. And there were a lot of people very interested in them, and I just think that for whatever reason, they just seem to have fallen off the map a little bit. I mean, you could make the argument. Some may make the argument that they were never all that great to begin with and a little bit overrated. But the fact of the matter is, a great many bands fall into their category, and they don't experience the same fate. So I kind of feel like some of the furor around all of that, I don't know whether that directly or indirectly put people off, but it certainly made them lose a lot of their momentum. Okay, Azenblut have posted a new track. It says here, pagan black metal horde Azenblut are premiering Entverselt, the newest preview tune from their upcoming studio album Entverselt. The latter drops on August the 22nd via Massacre Records. No idea what Azenblut sounds like, but on the thumbnail there's a very determined, tattooed LARPer who either thinks he's He-Man or some sort of Viking. So let's hear what this sounds like. So there's absolutely no denying the singer is built like an absolute brick shithouse. You know, as far as the rest of this is concerned, it's not doing anything for me. Music is all right. It sounds more like Bolt Thrower than it does a black metal band. And I love Bolt Thrower, but I don't really care for that. Moving on, Sanguisugabog have put out a brand new single. It's called Permanently Fucked. An elegant title for no doubt an elegant track. It was recorded and produced by Cody Davidson of Fix My Face Records, mixed by the great Kurt Ballou of God City Music, mastered by Alan Duché of West Side Music. Big fan of Kurt Ballou, and actually I've generally speaking been a big fan of Sanguisugabog as well, so let's hear what the song sounds like. That is death metal poetry, my friends. I mean, that is what a breakdown should sound like. Hard as fucking nails. Devin Swank sounds just inhuman. Just every single thing about that just works. Kurt Ballou, phenomenal job on the production. Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it. Devin Swank, by the way, I've not really spoken about it on the podcast yet. We should listen to a track by them at some point. But Earthburner is a project that he's also involved in, and Earthburner is, of course, features the great Jeremy Wagner. Jeremy Wagner is a friend of mine. Some have picked it up. I will just restate for the record that the name Into the Necrosphere comes from the Broken Hope track of the same name. And I do remember when Earthburner was just a topic of discussion. Jeremy and I spoke about it over lunch way back in 2003. So I'm glad that's finally up and running. And I couldn't think of a better dude to man the vocal booth for that project than Devin Swank. But yeah, he certainly distinguished himself here. The song is fucking excellent. No word as to whether or not this forms part of a potential new album. I know their previous record came out last year, but this gets the thumbs up from me without a shadow of a doubt. All right, let's check out a couple of more tracks, and then we will move on. There is one song that I do want to listen to, because firstly, I'm interested to hear what it sounds like, and secondly, it potentially throws a few more creases into the unfolding, I don't want to call it soap opera, but the unfolding mystery around what's going on in the My Dying Bride camp. Before we get to that, though, I want to talk about a bit of drama of my own. Now, normally, I never really respond to trolls. Fortunately, I never really get much trolling on any of the Into the Necrosphere social accounts. And if I do, I normally just block the person straight away. However, there's a first time for everything. Enter Matty Kinross, who posts on my Facebook when I posted a video about... I posted a reel from my Runa Skov interview. Runa, of course, of Griffin Audio. Posted a reel on Facebook and on Instagram. Matty writes, Runa looks like a used car salesman in a tacky suit. Imagine being stupid enough to actually listen to anything this gypsy has to say. He looks like he's been plucked out of the set of the movie Snatch. Eek. So yeah, like I said, normally I don't respond to these sorts of things, but I did want to take a moment to say, from the bottom of my heart, Matty, go fuck yourself, you stupid loser. Anyway, let's move on to the next song. I see Kitty has got a new single out. Well, I don't think we can... I've already inflicted one Kitty track on the Legion, but Wormed also have a brand new single. It says here, Spanish extreme metal ensemble Wormed unleash Regarde, the second single from their forthcoming studio record Omegon, dropping on July the 5th via Season of Mist. Let's hear what it sounds like. There's an awful lot going on here. I mean, there are hints of Benighted, Exocrine, some Dillinger escape plan, some car bomb. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on here, and I really, really like it. I think they mix together all of those influences in a really clever way, and a way that kind of feels very effective, but at the same time, you know, they're not turning the volume up on any of the influences to such a degree that one overpowers the other. I think that the production is nice and raw, but still has plenty of beef. Plenty of bottom end. All of the performances sound absolutely spot on. And what I really, really liked is in that bit that we just got through now, there's this sort of undercurrent of quite discordant melody, and I think that just helps. It just helps kind of center the focus in the midst of all the chaos and all of the kind of spastic mathcore beats that they're throwing in there alongside all the other extreme elements. So yeah, Very, very good stuff indeed, I think. Another thing, and apologies for interrupting so soon, but they have a definite feel for groove, and they deploy it at exactly the right points. Love what they're doing on this bit that we're listening to right now. Top notch. I absolutely love it. And maybe I'll see if I can get some of the someone from Wormed on the podcast at some point. Considering the fact that they're on Season of Mist, and relations are still good there. Relations are still positive when it comes to into the Necrosphere and that particular record label. Okay, so I did say I want to listen to the this particular track by a band called High Parasite. So, High Parasite feature Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dying Bride. The album that's going to be released, and if you bear with me 1 second, let me just get this started without it actually starting, well, which was a bit of a fuck up there. But anyway, the album was produced by Greg McIntosh of Paradise Lost, and I don't know, I get the feeling when I hear the performance and I see Aaron on this video, none of those things really should matter at the end of the day, but there's just something that's telling me that he seems to be a little bit more excited or enthused about this project than he does My Dying Bride. I may be reading way more into that than I should, but there's something that tells me this kind of feels like a new chapter for him, and maybe My Dying Bride, for reasons that are very personal. Obviously, we've spoken about it in the podcast, you know, the challenges that he went through, trying to find the inspiration to do, Ghost of Orion. Maybe all of that stuff factors into it. I don't know. But either way, let's hear the song.
Let it fail, let it fall, let the sky land on us all. Let it sink, let it go, let it rot down to the bone. The pressure, the seasons of mankind, the dying world. The pressure, the incredible man, the incredible world. My own God.
I love the song. I absolutely love the song. It's got a very heavy bent towards Paradise Lost. Like, if you put Nick Holmes in the vocal booth and you recorded this and you put that out as a new Paradise Lost song, I would have gone, yeah, great. It sounds like a fucking brilliant new Paradise Lost track. Probably going to be part of a brilliant new Paradise Lost full length. So, there's that. There's definitely, to me, there's just something about, I don't know why I'm picking it up, but I would love to hear your opinions as well. I'm just picking up a vibe here, like maybe Aaron has checked out of Camp My Dying Bride and checked into Camp High Parasite. I hope that's not the case, because I really do think this new My Dying Bride record is one of the best things they've done in many, many years, and it would be such a shame if they aren't able to solve whatever internal squabbles or internal hindrances are stopping them from playing shows, and stopping them from really enjoying the fact that this new album is so good and has been so well received. Yeah, there's just something that tells me that this song and this project plays into something that's going on there. That's my hunch, and I'm sticking to it. All right, let's have a quick scan through Metal Injection, and then maybe we'll wrap it up. The first thing that I want to talk about is Metallica's post-Black Album releases ranked according to you. Now, we have confirmed that the readers of Metal Injection invariably have absolutely atrocious taste, but it says here, one album was certainly more popular than the others. We had a pretty tough question for you over the weekend. They write, what's the best Metallica album after their 1991 landmark self-titled, or the Black Album as mostly everyone knows it? While a few of Metallica's albums did pretty well votes-wise, there's one that came out the clear winner. Reload gets 216 votes. Saint Anger gets 279 votes. 72 Seasons gets 625 votes. Load gets 886 votes. Hardwired to Self-Destruct gets 977 votes. And then, disturbingly, Death Magnetic gets 1,511 votes. So that apparently is the top album as voted for, or the top post-Black Album record as voted for by the readers of Metal Injection website. And they are, of course, wrong, because the best album that Metallica put out after Load, or not after Load, sorry, after the Black Album, was Load. Because for me, at least, there were some songs on there that, even though it was a very bold new direction for them, they're songs I can go back to this day, including Bleeding Me, which I think Bleeding Me is one of the best Metallica songs ever written. I think that 72 Seasons is on a par with Saint Anger in terms of being completely and utterly unlistenable. Reload, I don't enjoy. I find myself very indifferent towards Hardwired to Self-Destruct. And Death Magnetic, I'm immediately put off by the fact that a band would have employed, and I know this is rumor, but I've reason to believe that the rumor is correct, to have deployed focus groups and have a PR agency manage or be involved in the creation of the record. Like, my understanding is they had people listening to stuff that they were doing and kind of saying to them, like, this has the feel of the early material. And it just feels to me like that record to me just feels very forced. The songs are overly long, again, almost as if they were saying, like, we want to go back to making epic tracks like we had on Master of Puppets and Justice for All. It just doesn't work. I think The Day That Never Comes is all right. The rest of the album sucks. But Load, that has some decent songs on. So I differ strongly from the consensus view here, but anyway. Nails announced their first record in 8 years and streams a blazing new single called Imposing Will. I am very down with new Nails material. It says here, Nails is back after 8 years with a new record entitled Every Bridge Burning. It's due out on August the 30th. Blazing new single, Imposing Will, streaming right now. Let's hear what it sounds like. The song is nearly finished, so let's pause it there when that breakdown kicks, it kicks very hard indeed, and I think that song is fucking excellent. Again, I'm a big fan of Nails. Make no apologies about that. I don't think they've got a song that is bad, let alone a record. So very excited that they're back. All right. Let's see if there's anything else here worth checking out. Nothing that's immediately attracting my attention. We can jump over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music and see what's going on there. Night Wishes, Thomas Holopainen names his favorite rock and metal song of all time. I can tell you mine certainly wouldn't, or my top 5 million wouldn't include a song by Nightwish. Sons of Metallica members announce Bastard Dane and Auto Summer Tour 2024. I think we can listen to Bastard Dane on the news rant, and it would. I rued the day that I switched it on. Serge Tankian reveals what it would take for System of a Down to release a new studio album, hopefully far more than anyone is willing to pay. Wasp's Blackie Lawless performs while seated at first post-surgery concert. I don't know if I would want to see that. I love Wasp, as all of you know, but I want to remember particularly my childhood heroes. And we touched on this when I was talking to Aaron earlier. But yeah, I want to remember my childhood heroes the way that I grew up seeing them. Virile, strapping young men that gave the finger to the world, used loads of profanity, drank on stage. And we're just absolute badasses. Seeing somebody like Blackie in a chair, I'm not so keen on that. All right, is there anything else here that we want to see? The Black Veil Birds singer reflects on his angry Revolver Golden Guards acceptance speech. You have to stand up for yourself. I can only imagine he was angry because the audience was triggering him with their loud applause. So, Kerry King, never in a million years did I want to call my new band Kerry King. I'm quite surprised he went through with that. I don't know why he didn't come up with a different name. Forbidden has the beginnings of a lot of songs for their upcoming comeback album. I'm very excited about that because I fucking love Forbidden. Yeah, folks, I think that's probably going to be it for this week of the weekly news rant. Hope you guys have enjoyed that. All right, mates. Tragically, that is the end of another episode of Into the Necrosphere. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for checking out the show. Thank you so much to my guest, Aaron Weaver of Wolves in the Throne Room. And thank you so much to Dominic, as well as to Gary of Reaper Agency for their kindness, their generosity, and for making me part of an absolutely fantastic festival that I think is going to go from strength to strength, not just in the UK, but in the black metal scene generally. I will be back later this week with another of my Fortress Forum conversations. My guest is going to be Ralph Schmidt of Ultha. On Tuesday, I've got a full-blooded, numbered episode of Into the Necrosphere coming your way. My guest is going to be Harold Fosberg of the band Turbo Necro. Lots of discussing the history of black metal on that one, which I know you all love. And then later next week, I'm going to be dropping my Fortress Forum conversation featuring a member of the band Guerilla. So lots of great things coming your way, including the song that's going to see us home, taken from the new Whoredom Rife record, which if you haven't listened to it yet, check yourself before you wreck yourself. It is absolutely brilliant. My friends, whatever it is that you are doing and wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again on Friday.